Hello, friends. Lee C. Camp. You're listening to No Small Endeavor. This is our unabridged interview with Tom Paxton. I confess with a measure of chagrin that I did not know who Tom Paxton was until the last year or so. I was one day working and had a Spotify playlist playing, and all of a sudden I heard this song, and I thought, what did that just say? And I looked, and all of a sudden I was Googling the lyrics and thought, who is this guy? Tom Paxton. Tom Paxton, if you don't know Tom Paxton, was one of the new folk revival greats from the 60s. And so I began paying attention to Tom and listening to a lot of his music and decided to go up to New York City and catch him at one of his shows. And so Sophie Byard, one of our producers, and I made our way to New York City and met Tom in the green room at the City Winery before one of his shows. He's now into his 80s. He's been performing for 63 years. And he's finishing up his touring next Memorial Day. It was very much a delight to get to sit with Tom and listen to him tell stories about his career and his work and his folk music. I love doing these interviews. We've done quite a few of them now with people who have made remarkable contributions in their work, in their lives, and listening to how they think about it near the end of their lives, as opposed to perhaps when they're right in the middle of any sort of bubble of publicity. And it's a remarkable sort of wisdom that we always get to hear. So here's Tom Paxton. Here we were backstage at the green room at the City Winery in New York. Enjoy. Tom Paxton here in the green room in...
It's actually green.
It is actually green here at the City Winery in New York City. About to go on stage. Delightful to get to be with you. I've been really looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Yeah, delight to be with you. You're 86, about to turn 87 next week.
I can't believe it, but yes.
And you're about to go on stage.
Yeah.
After how many years of...
63 years.
Wow. That's a lot of shows.
It's a lot of shows.
How did you ever imagine when you started doing music, you'd be doing this for all of your life?
I hoped I would, but I didn't believe it was possible.
Yeah. What's your earliest memory of performance?
Oh, that's easy. I was in the second grade, I think it was, in Chicago. And I don't know what the play was or anything. All I knew was that I was Uncle Sam. I had on the whole little suit, you know, and a cotton goatee. And somewhere there's a picture of that. I don't know where. And they applauded. And I thought... Hello.
You were hooked.
This feels nice. I'd like some more of this, please. So I've been a ham ever since then.
Yeah. What do you, you said you're nearing the end of your touring?
Oh, very much so, yes.
Yeah.
I figured to stop touring next Memorial Day weekend. I arbitrarily set that date.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to gig past then. There will be the odd special event, but it won't be of a professional touring nature.
Yeah. How many albums have you recorded?
I have no idea.
I saw a number maybe somewhere between 50 and 60. But
it's something like that.
Yeah, but you're not sure.
Yeah.
When you think of those early years... today, I wandered around Greenwich Village because I wanted to see this old place that you sang when you were young at the Gaslight Cafe. Is that what it's called? Yeah. What are some of your memories of playing there in Greenwich Village?
Oh, so many good memories. So few bad ones. It was a wonderful laboratory for us. It was a way to learn how to get on stage and what to do and how to get off. As a matter of fact, it was a perfect format at the Gaslight. We had about 7 or 8 people in the cast, and we would do 3-song sets. And we'd do about 4 or 5 of them a night. And when you think of it, it was how to get on, what to do next, and how to get off.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. We learned how to do that. And the rest is just filling it out a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was a very collegial kind of atmosphere. We had a room upstairs where we left our guitar cases, and we even had a penny ante poker game in progress, and we had rigged up a speaker so we could hear the show, and you could tell when it was your time.
Yeah,
cash in your chips and go play your set, come back up and get back in the game. And the movie Inside Llewyn Davis looked perfect. They really got the look of what it felt like. The one thing I missed in that movie, which by the way I liked the movie, there wasn't any laughter. Now it was their movie, not mine.
Yeah.
So they do that their way. But for my mind, there would have been lots of laughter because we laughed all the time at each other, with each other. And we also sang songs for one another and got critiques.
Yeah.
There was serious business to sing a song for someone like Phil Oakes. Phil would give you an honest report of what he thought. And so would Dave Van Ronk. Very helpful advice, but mainly support, sometimes undeserved support, but loving support, and competition as well.
Yeah.
But it was all very healthy, I thought.
So Dave Van Ronk at one point said that Bob Dylan's usually cited as the founder of the new song movement, and he certainly became its most visible standard bearer. But the person who started the whole thing was Tom Paxton. He tested his songs in the crucible of live performance. He found that his own stuff was getting more attention than when he was singing traditional songs. He set himself a training regimen of deliberately writing one song every day. So before we get to, I want to ask about the one song every day, but talk to us then about how, this is a pretty significant endorsement of being seen as the sort of one of the great patriarchs of the folk movement. What do you do with that? How did you have a sense at that time what was going on?
What do I do with it?
Yeah,
I cash it in for the incalculable riches that accrue to such a thing.
I mean, did y'all have a sense of the sort of significant moment this was in American cultural development?
No, we didn't feel that at all at the time. It became and remains a surprise to me, such a focus on that period and place. But it certainly was fun while we were there, but we didn't have any idea that it was going to be examined from across the sea or in academe.
Yeah.
We were just young kids trying to make a living.
Yeah. So you had already gone to college, and then you at that time you were in the Army.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 year in the Army?
I was in the Army in 1960.
Okay. Yeah.
And I got out in September of 60.
Okay. I would imagine that given some of the kind of protest songs that do you like that label, protest song?
I don't mind.
Don't mind it.
I mean,
So
I didn't like being called a protest singer because I wrote songs like "The Marvelous Toy," and "Ramblin' Boy," and I mean, just a small portion of the songs were angry songs, and I completely claim them, but it's just one part of the picture.
Yeah. So. Could we dwell on some of the angry songs for a moment? What was the what were you reading? What were you encountering that precipitated a lot of that work?
Well, it came with the territory. My idols were people like the Weavers, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, whom I never got a chance to meet. and the union struggles and that came with folk music. You had folk songs being sung in the coal camps and protesting the indecencies of the mine owners. It was all real. And it was part of what you heard. You know, Woody Guthrie songs involved the life of the migrant worker and the flight from the Dust Bowl and all of that. That was part of it. And along with it came the funny songs and children's songs and love songs and angry songs. It was part of the whole picture. And I accepted that. And so I would get ideas for a song of protest. Yes. And to me, they were songs that they deserved as much attention from the craft as any song. But they were the songs that any self-respecting commercial songwriter would just not bother writing. They might just sing for their friends or something. But to me, they were part of the whole palette.
What in those years kept you in a space of willingness to write and sing those kinds of songs when they didn't have a sort of commercial viability?
The fact that they did have an audience, they had a healthy audience that would accept them as along with the other songs.
Yeah.
So I never felt. I'm sure I was hurting my chances commercially, but I was getting plenty of recordings of my other songs. So I never felt that I had a difficult choice to make. You know, either starve or there was none of that.
Yeah. Lyndon Johnson told the nation.
Didn't he though? Didn't he though?
What was the origin of that song?
What was it? What
was the origin of that song?
Lyndon Johnson saying that he wasn't going to send American boys to fight a war that Vietnam boys should be fighting. And then sending American boys and then more American boys and then like 500,000 American boys. That's what caused that song.
Yeah. One of the things that strikes me about hearing you refer to some of those songs as angry songs is that they don't come across as angry. I mean, they come across as indicting, but there's a sort of ironic playfulness about it, I think. That is kind of disarming, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I remember the first time hearing some of those songs, and I was working and I started hearing that and I thought, what did that just say? And I just had to stop and go back and look the lyrics up and said, this is brilliant. But when you allude to them as angry songs, is that where you were? Were you angry? Or
oh yes, I was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're angry songs, all right. I mean, I hope they're funny as well. But I learned a lot of that from Tom Lehrer. Tom Lehrer wrote funny songs too, with Razor's Edge in them.
Yeah.
And Woody Guthrie also.
Yeah.
Woody had a great sense of irony.
Yeah.
He could poke holes in idiots.
Yeah. Another one that is really striking in this regard. What did you learn in school today? Yeah.
That was, to my great joy, that was one of Pete Seeger's 10 favorite songs.
Really?
That one.
Huh.
He told about being in an Indian village and someone came up and sang him.
Huh.
What did you learn at school today? In Sanskrit or Hindi, something.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that one really worked.
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't been singing it now. I should be.
Yeah. It's a brilliant song. What were you've already named people like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. Were there other sources that sustained you in making those kinds of observations about what was going on in the world?
Studs Terkel. I loved Studs' work, and he did a few interviews with me, which I loved doing. He was a great interviewer. There were wonderful voices for peace and sanity, and I'm having trouble recalling the names right now.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume in you're living in Greenwich Village area. I would assume it's kind of like it's all in the air, I would imagine. In those days.
Yeah. I always thought of myself as being just one of the choir.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the gang that chips in my contributions from time to time as best I can.
At one point you said about your younger self, being young and impassioned almost automatically put me over on the radical side of most issues. And then you said, being older, I find myself still more or less there, somewhat to my surprise. What kind of work did you do in the civil rights movement in the 60s?
Singing, writing, marching.
Yeah.
None of the hard work. You know, and I didn't get my bones broken or anything like that. I just lent all the support I could.
Yeah. Why don't you? I was your song "Daily News." Civil rights leaders are a pain in the neck. How do I know? I read it in the Daily News. Peace hurts business, and that ain't right. How do I know? I read it in the Daily News. We got to bomb Castro. Got to bomb him flat. He's too damn successful. We can't risk that. What's your take on the way in which that song seems to be too true?
Well, it ain't my fault. I think I would take another look at the line about Castro. Too damn successful? I don't think so. I mean, I think the verdict is pretty solid on that is not a successful venture.
Yeah.
But you only had to read the Daily News to see what they wanted us to believe that was a lie.
What's your earliest memory of being willing to ask questions of the powers that be?
I think it goes a long way back with me. I had a mindset as a kid, as a young student, everything. I wanted it. I wanted to believe that it was the way they said it was. I wanted that. It would have been so much easier. But it wasn't and isn't. So I made friends with the truth. I said, you know, this is a tough world, and the people who want it all are also tough. You know, this is not a game for sissies. You have to be willing to hurt. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to get hit in the head all the time. You know, you'd like it to be the way they paint it in Ronald Reagan eloquence, sitting on a hill. All that. Only part of that is true. And part of it is very wrong. And as somebody said, freedom isn't free. You have to fight for it day and night for it. It's always going to be a struggle. And there are always going to be people who want not only theirs, but yours. And that's where the struggle is. They don't want a fair deal. They want the whole deal. Mm. And too bad if you're too weak to get your half. Mm.
Did those sorts of questions arise for you from your parents?
My mother was the daughter of Swedish immigrants, and she learned from them to do what was expected of her and live a blameless life and not to stick her head out. Mm. She stuck to the home. She was a churchgoer and a believer, and it worked for her. My father died when I was 10, nearly 11, so I never really got to know my father. He was a very respected man and deserved it. He left a paid salaried job in the middle of the Depression as a chemist to start his own company manufacturing hydraulic brake fluid to his own formula. Mm. And he made a go of it with 3 children to support. Mm. I don't know how he did that or where he got the sand to do that, but he did that. And then he worked himself to death during the war. Mm. And I lost him when I was just about to turn 11. He was a conservative man, did not like Roosevelt at all. Mm. I think he was at least a bit of an anti-Semite. I don't know whether he was a racist, but it was probably the casual racism of the time. But he was certainly not a progressive man. So I don't think I got anything of what I am from them. Mm. I think I got it from my associations as I was growing up. But having said that, right the way through university, I was almost totally apolitical. Huh. I was a drama student at the University of Oklahoma. I tell people that I wanted to be an actor, but that I settled for the security of folk music. But I didn't think much politically at all. Huh. It was only when I came to New York, when the civil rights movement was blazing, erupting, even as I landed. Huh. When I got here, I was in the Army still and coming in on weekends to the village, and a fellow named Len Chandler, who was my first folk singing friend in New York, took me to a picket line in front of a Woolworths. Huh. The students in the South were sitting in at Woolworths, and we were picketing in the North in support of that. Mm. And I wrote a perfectly dreadful song in support of that. But it was not a stretch for me. All I needed to see really was what was going on, and automatically lined with them. Yeah. And that was my beginning of awakening. Then I became great pals with Dave Van Ronk, who was as red as they come, who despised the Communist Party because he saw them as they really were. He didn't have any rose-colored glasses when he looked at them. He saw them for the thugs they were. And he belonged to the Socialist Workers' Party, which was purer, apparently. I got a lot of fun out of it because he would come to the Gaslight from a meeting of the SWP, and he would count. Well, someone got up and read a 20-page single-spaced
manifesto of some sort
of the guy sitting next to him, Comrade Peter, who was that close to his own position, but that little difference between them was, And I said, how many people are in this party? He said, about 85. And I said, I can feel the foundations of the Republic trembling right now. So I never was attracted to radical politics. For one thing, I hated meetings, and you gotta go to meetings. So that was not for me. But I was always just a Democrat.
Yeah,
In the end, I was what I'd called a Bobby Kennedy Democrat. Certainly on the left wing of the Democratic Party, but no further left than that.
So you began doing, I guess, was it your very first song? Did I read that you write one of your earliest songs, children's songs, typing it on a typewriter when you're in the Army?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell that story tonight.
Okay.
About the writing of The Marvelous Toy. You think, why did I write a children's song on an Army typewriter in pink practice paper? And years later, decades later, I got at least part of the answer, I think. I think that subconsciously, I was reacting to all the typewriter keys being clattered for 2 hours in these typing classes that I was paying no attention to because I could already type. And I think that the clickety-clackety-click somehow got into the subconscious and came out.
And out came the song.
As this toy.
Yeah. And then you've done lots of children's songs and children's songs albums through the years.
Yeah.
Do you see children's songs in tension with the other kind of work we've been talking about, or do you see those in continuity with them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember the delight that I took in hearing a song like, that wasn't even a children's song, but Goober Peas, an old Confederate.
Yeah.
Peas, 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 eat, goodness, how delicious. And also the verse that goes, just before the battle, the general hears a row. He said, the Yanks are coming. I hear the rifle now. He turned around and wondered, and what do you think he sees? The Georgia militia eating goober peas. Well, that's what Shel Silverstein would call paying off. You get to the end of the verse, the chorus, whatever, and there's a punch to it. Eating goober peas is a little surprise,
right? And
a little punchline kind of a thing. And I was always delighted. I would hear Burl Ives sing "Blue Tail Fly." Everyone knows Jimmy Crack Corn. No one knows what Jimmy Crack Corn is, by the way. But so part of the songs and the Weavers would sing children's songs as part of a regular concert. It was not an isolated only for children kind of a deal with them. And so I did write The Marvelous Toy and Going to the Zoo and My Dog's Bigger Than Your Dog. and one of my best favorites I co-wrote with Bob Gibson is called Mashed Potatoes.
I don't know that one.
Well, it's a good song. Trust me, it's a good song. I know it's a good song because when I sing it for kids, I see them react with their parents. It turned to the parents. They get the joke, and they want to make sure the parent got the joke. So I'm not.
Yeah.
I know when it's good, and it's good. And so I take as much pleasure in writing a children's song as I do in any song. I love writing songs so much that I'll never stop. I know I've written some good ones, and I've got some good ones still in me.
Talk to us about that experience of creativity and the process of writing. What's it like for you? How would you describe I don't know. A lot of times I think of creativity as a crucible of sorts. There's some sort of heat, there's some sort of precious materials, and out comes something that's lovely and beautiful. But what's the process like for you?
Well, it's the same delicious game, no matter the difference of the song. It's getting an idea and seeing where it leads until you finally reach a point I call cracking the code, where you know where you're going. And then finishing a first draft and then looking for the rough spots, the speed bumps, we call them, and eliminating them to get rid of any moment in the song where you kind of cringe when you come to it because you know it's
not quite right.
Not quite right. And getting it quite right until it's all quite right. It's a great feeling.
You alluded to it before we started taping as an addictive process.
Oh, it is. Oh, there's always another song you can write.
Yeah.
It's not something to put in your arm. It's something to put in your soul. It's always a pleasure to finish a song that works, especially when you've gone over it, you've lovingly smoothed that stuff, you've had ideas with it, you keep with it until it's quite done, and then you know it's done. And you know you've done it.
Yeah.
I love what someone once said. They said, I'm responsible for the effort, not the result. You can't know what's going to befall that song once it leaves you. It may meet a massive indifference. No one may ever like it as you do. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If they do like it, that's fun. And if they pay money to buy copies of it, that's fun too. But the real fun is to see it in people's eyes when you sing it for them.
Yeah. There was I listened some to I came across a recording of Pete Seeger, a concert he did at Carnegie Hall. And he sang your song "Rambling Boy," and he was in that set, kind of introducing a younger generation of folk singers. And I don't have the quote here, but he said something about kind of praising these younger folks of whom you were one, that they're trying to be authentically writing about life, and he said something like. They're not writing for, I don't know if he said celebrity or for getting on the charts. And then he said, if he gets on the charts, that's great, but that's not the goal here. It's to write authentically about life. And so I wonder, on the one hand, you've had this, I would think very privileged life
Yes.
of writing and singing songs for
Yes.
crowds all over the country, all over the world, I presume, for 63 years. And yet, was there also a part of you that wished that more people wanted to hear your singing? What was there an inner dialogue about
sure.
more celebrity, less celebrity? What's that like for you?
I'm only human.
Right.
I mean,
that's what I would assume. I would assume.
Of course, you'd prefer to have a wider and wider and wider audience.
Yeah.
But that's something over which you have no control. None. And it's happened. I've had a bit of that in England. I've had a very successful concert career in England, not so much here.
Mm.
And would I prefer to have had more? Of course. But am I happy with what I've had? Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And I accept what I've had, and I accept that my lack of more success is largely my own fault. I don't think I paid enough attention to the recordings.
Mm.
I tended to do the recordings more as documents than as works of art. I mean, the writing was where the art came in, and I didn't master the reporting. Like my friend Paul Simon was a master of recordings. His recordings were hits deservedly, and so I have to live with that, and I don't mind. I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah. Did you have? Is that kind of being comfortable with that something that has come relatively easy for you, or is that something that you had to work on negotiating within yourself?
I think the latter.
Yeah.
I think I've had to do some growing up.
What was that negotiating like, or what did you learn out of that process?
Mainly, it was facing what I had and had not done. Facing that the buck stopped with me, that there was nobody but myself to look to any success or failure.
Mm-hmm. Feel free to pass on this next question if you want, but I'm interested too in you've talked some publicly about your experience of depression. I think in maybe in the 80s. I'm fascinated with that because I've had my own experience with depression, and I'm always interested to hear what other people have learned about it. But if you're open to that, what did you learn out of that sort of experience?
I learned that I needed to stand up on my two hind legs and take it on. I had suffered from depression. Wasn't my fault. Depression comes to us whether we like it or not. And possibly some of it was genetic. Some of it was inability to handle all of the nuances of a career like this. A career right out in front of people is not easy. And that is not a complaint. Absolutely no self-pity. I asked for it, begged for it. I wanted to do this. And, I was doing well. And then there are consequences of not having done it well that can be difficult to live with. And any kind of a public life like this is going to put pressures that you're not necessarily ready to handle, and I found that. I had some help with it along the way. I had some medication for a while, and I also grew up. Not too soon. Not a minute too soon. You know, about time, you might say. So bottom line is I feel incredibly lucky to have had the help I've had, the friends I've had that I could trust and rely on, shoulders to cry on, and slaps on the face to straighten me up. Good friends, strong friends. And so I'm all right.
Yeah. There's I don't know when you wrote the losing part.
Oh, yeah.
But boy, what a moving song. When it never came true, never happened to you, it just slowly faded away till it broke your heart. Some dreams die harder. Some are living yet. Sooner or later, you get to the losing part.
I like that song.
It's moving. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you write that out of some of this experience that you're talking about?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote that song in blood. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You also have written I would say some pretty significant love songs. But as I was thinking about them today, I think some of them strike me as much songs about perseverance or not as maybe love songs. I don't know, but how does that summary strike you?
I'm not sure I agree with it.
Yeah, tell me about that.
In the love songs, I try really hard to be emotionally honest, to see love in context of a life, to see love as something that happens while other things are also happening. Life is being lived. But in the end, it's, as all the songs will tell you, the only thing. It's the love you've had, the love you've made. That's the sum of the life. A life without love, a loveless life, is a desert.
So you met your wife, Midge, at the Gaslight?
Yep.
What was it like? You remember her first
Sure,
meeting her?
I remember. Yeah. I remember seeing her come in the door. She was with David Cohen, who later made some albums as David Blue. They had just run into one another up on McDougal Street, and they had known each other the year before at Provincetown, she told me. So they weren't an item or anything. They just came in together. And I saw her, and I thought to myself, he has no chance. No chance. I want to get to know this woman. And so I did. And in fact, we were together by the end of that evening. I did a evening's work as well as winning the heart of my lady. And I proposed to her in 2 weeks, and we were married.
2 weeks after you met her?
Yeah, proposed to her. We were married in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And we were just 1 month shy of 51 years when she died. You couldn't be more romantic. And of course, they gave us 6 months on the street. We give you 6 months, but we fooled them. She was the joy of my life. She was my rock. I mean, she believed in me unswervingly. Gave gave me 2 incredible daughters, and now 3 amazing grandsons. It would have been wildly different if I hadn't met and married her.
So your love song, "The Last Thing on My Mind," how does that or not fit in your own love story?
Oh, it doesn't fit at all. It's
presume
amazing.
not. Yeah.
I wrote it one afternoon in about 20 minutes while her sister was visiting, and I sang it for my producer. I was about to do my first album for Electro. And so my producer, Paul Rothschild, when I sang it for him in a corner of the Gaslight, said he'd never heard a more beautiful song. So it went on the first album, the Ramblin' Boy album. And as I sang it in my shows at the Gaslight, friends would come up to me and say, is everything okay? I said, what? What do you mean? Well, I mean, it's so sad. I said, it's just a song. It's a song. How would I feel? Song.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's an authentic song, authentic emotions, but it's not autobiographical at all. Doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And people finally accepted everything's cool. You know,
It has to be gratifying that Dolly Parton just covered the song, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh my Lord! Especially this recent recording. They did an album, a tribute to Doc Watson, on what would have been his 100th birthday, and she re-recorded "The Last Thing on My Mind," and she did it now more like Doc did it.
Huh.
There's a YouTube video of Doc and Dolly backstage at Merlefest singing it much more slowly than her hit recording with Porter Wagner.
Yeah.
And that's, oh my God, she just, such a recording. I've never met Dolly. I'd love to meet her just to thank her.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll link to that in the show notes so people can find that. So back to being married to Midge for almost 51 years. She passed away 10 years ago.
Yeah, yes, 10 years. June the 1st, 2014.
Yeah. What's the
11 a.m. We were all there.
Had you been anticipating? Had she been ill for some time?
She's been ill for 12 years. It was hard.
What are things that you've learned about yourself through the process of grieving?
That I can love. I can love children. I can love my own children, and I can love my wife as only I can love her, and that it's a real power.
You, I don't know. I've been married 30. What year is this? I've been married 34 years.
And never a crossword.
Never a crossword. I make up that I would imagine that if my wife were to die before me, that I would find myself talking to her. Do you do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
What's that like?
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm being heard. There are things that I would only say to her. But I need to say them, not just think them. So
yeah,
I go to her.
I mean, in some ways, it seemed like that goes back to something you said earlier about I would imagine as much time as you've spent on stage, um, there's a sort of showman, and then there's the even when one might have a complete integrity in themselves, even as a showman, it seems like there's still an element of yourself that they didn't come to hear you talk about maybe certain things about yourself.
Right.
Right. So what have you learned about how you be your real self in spaces you need to be your real self and not feel like you have to always be on?
Well, they certainly don't need to hear me talk about Oklahoma football.
For sure. I would agree. Yeah.
Which is an enormous part. Or now, Oklahoma softball. Oh, which is a passion. They have just won 4 straight national championships. But the art of performing it's a constant process. Part of us always regards performing as false. It's just an act. When really the kind of performing that I respect is authentic. You saw the real Pete Seeger, and I hope by God you see the real me. That doesn't mean I spill it all. Who wants all?
Right, yeah.
What you learn to do to present an edited version of your real self, emphasize real self, but without the nose picking, without the scratching, without the ums and ahs, an edited version that is still authentic. Mm. I know my dear friend, the late Bob Gibson, used to say, they put us in front of a microphone that amplifies every sound we make. They put the only light on us. They set up all the chairs facing us. And then they tell us just to go and be ourselves. Well, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn all kinds of tricks to avoid that. Ruses. Tricks. But it's never good until you learn to actually be yourself in that moment. Hmm. But except for a couple geniuses, nobody can do that right away. Hmm. You learn to do that. You learn to do away with the dodges and the fakes and the tricks. You learn to do away with them and say, here I am. I have something I'd like to give you, some music or some jokes or something. This is for you, from me, with nothing in between us. That's an honorable thing to do.
Yeah,
that it's an honorable pursuit, but it's not easy.
Yeah. So two last questions as we kind of get to a close. What other you've alluded to a number of practices, things you've learned that I would call good life wisdom. But as you look back upon a career well lived, what would you say have been some of the bits of wisdom that have been crucial for you in trying to live well and do well in the world?
It's not about you. It's all about us. We are part of an ongoing pursuit. And we have an ever-expanding cast of chums, of allies, fellow thinkers who feel the same way. Not about us, it's about all of us. And that includes an awful lot of total morons. I mean, that's just part of it. I spill it out again. You know, like half the people I know in this world think that a criminal president is a dandy idea. And particularly since they can count on him to harm the people they hate. Well, that's what we're living with. So how do we make a good life in spite of that? Loving and working. Loving and working. Do no harm. Do no harm. Not even to them. Do no harm. Work. Pray. I believe in prayer. Prayer changes us. Prayer takes us out of ourselves. So that's what I've learned.
What does prayer look like to you? Or do you have favorite particular prayers, or what kind of prayer?
I think prayer to me is to put the problem out there and look for help with it. See what the universe can do. I'll tell you, this is not so much prayer as what I have learned about the brain, the creative brain. Midge and I were staying in Maine at the home of my old roommate, Noel Stuckey, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And I was the first one up. I had my notebook, and I was out this insane view of Penobscot Bay. It changes every 5 minutes. It's just wonderful. It's meditation just to sit there and look. Well, I was working on a lyric to a tune by my friend Susan Graham White. And it was a love song with the age-old conflict of shall we go to the shore or the mountains? That, in short, that theme. And things were not working out well. And the second verse began, you came down to Camden and you tried to make it go, but you dreamed of da-da-da-da and your Colorado snow. So I needed da-da-da-da. And it needed to be something inimicably Colorado. Okay? Had to be, and just like that, the word Uncompahgre came to me. Uncompahgre is a mountain in western Colorado.
Huh.
And it was perfect. It's a strong word, a wonderful word. And it's not simple. You came down to Camden, you tried to make it go, but you dreamed of Uncompahgre and your Colorado snow. Problem solved. The only time in my life that I had ever encountered that name was when I was in junior high school. And a friend of mine's family had a summer business in western Colorado. I don't know what it was, but that's where they went and he sent me a picture postcard of Uncompahgre with an ink of how far up they had climbed, okay? And I had never seen the word since and had never heard it pronounced, and there it was. And that's because we forget nothing.
Mm.
It's all stored and it can be accessed. It was accessed for me in seconds.
Mm.
Now, to me, that's jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Bible tells us, ask and you be answered. Seek and ye shall find. Well, it turns out that's true. And why don't we teach ourselves to use that even more deliberately?
Mm.
So prayer for me is saying, I need a little help here.
Mm.
I don't know what to do here. What's my best course of action?
Yeah.
And let the little file clerks in the back of my mind go, he needs an answer. He needs an answer.
So last thing, I couldn't conclude it without pointing to your recent song with John McCutcheon, Together, which is, I presume you've written this in your time of grief. But, what a beautiful song.
Which song is that?
Together.
Oh, yeah.
Two old lovers in two old chairs. And then, so each night before I go to sleep, I feel the love so long, so deep, for we have promises to keep together.
Yeah.
It's not a song about falling in love. It's a song about staying in love.
Yes, it is.
What's that song do for you, or how would you encourage us in the spirit of that song to learn to stay in love?
I'm not that good a teacher. That anything we do toward staying in love is the right thing to do.
Been talking to Tom Paxton at the City Winery in New York City just before going on stage. Tom, thanks so much, not only for your generosity with your time, but your lifetime of work and the gift it's been to us and to so many. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Our thanks to all the stellar team that makes this show possible. Christy Bragg, Jacob Lewis, Sophie Byard, Tom Anderson, Kate Hayes, Mary Evelyn Brown, Harriet Harmon, Jason Sheasley, Audrey Griffith, and Tim Lauer. Thanks for listening, and let's keep exploring what it means to live a good life together. No Small Endeavor is a production of PRX, Tokens Media LLC, and
Great Feeling Studios.